You're watching Beyond Clean Live, where clean freaks get their fix.
Hey, Sterile Processing Universe, it's Hank Balch here from Beyond Clean with a special video for you today. We're interviewing the finalist for the Decontamination Innovation Award Series, a brand new global award contest. We actually announced it in 2019 at the World Congress for Sterilization in The Hague, Netherlands. Of course, the pandemic hit, but here we are in early 2021, finally closing out the first round of the Decon Innovation Awards. And we're talking to the three finalists this week. We're going to put their innovation and their story in front of you for the fun part, because the last round of these awards means that the global public sterile processing professionals around the globe can vote for their favorite finalists in this award series. And the big kicker is, if you vote every entry and just voting, you get the opportunity as a voter to win a $200 giveaway. And then, of course, you get to help us decide who the final winner, the grand champion of the Decon Innovation Awards for 2021 will be. So if you're watching this live feed, there's going to be a link in the comment section below to show you where to go to vote. And if you want to read some more about the Decon Innovation Award finalists, you can go to decontamination.com and check out the finalist page and read about the three stories, the three innovators there, and their ideas to change the decontamination space. As always, anytime that you watch one of these live feeds, we love to hear who you are and where you're watching from. And in particular for this one, because this is a global award series, we want to know state, country, where are you tuning in from? Drop that in the comment section below if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And we'd love to see that. And of course, we'd love to have your vote in this series to help us determine who the winner is. Now, without further ado, our first finalist that we're going to bring on the show is a guy by the name of Joe Burlew. And I actually met Joe in person a couple of years ago at one of the national ISHM chapter and conventions. He's from Houston, Texas. And we're going to talk to him about his innovation called the Decontaminator. So let me bring Joe into the studio now. Hey, Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, so congratulations for making it to the top three. That's a pretty big deal. Did you have any idea when you first put your entry in that you're going to make it to the top?
No idea whatsoever. With COVID, we had kind of forgotten about everything and hadn't thought anything and was focused on other things. So it was a
That's right. COVID has thrown us all for a loop around the globe, especially in our industry, obviously healthcare. So it's a pleasure to get to talk to you today and get to share the story about your innovation. But before we get there, I've got a couple of softball questions I want to throw your way. Get us warmed up, get the audience warmed up a little bit. So as we get going here, I want to know, what is your favorite fast food? Now, not just talking about the restaurant. I want to know the specific order. What is that one fast food? And if you get the opportunity to order it, this is at the top of Joe Burlew's list.
It would probably definitely have to be tacos.
Yeah, tacos? So, no, we talking like Taco Bell tacos? Or are you talking about like authentic, street tacos?
I'm talking about so much so that it's tacos that it doesn't matter if it's Taco Bell.
Okay.
Like anything.
Good choice. Now, as a Texan, I know a little bit something about tacos, and so I want you to specify a little bit. We're talking breakfast tacos, we talking like normal, kind of lunch and dinner tacos? How would you differentiate those two?
I would definitely say all of them. Actually, my favorite breakfast is breakfast tacos, and I've generally cooked
Right.
myself, but I'll take them from anywhere. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Put it in a tortilla.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you go on that one then. All right. Next softball. What's your favorite movie?
Ooh, it'd have to be Gladiator.
Okay,
Sure.
Russell Crowe. Yeah. All right, good choice. Yeah. So, no spoilers here. Have you seen the new series, The Mandalorian?
I actually have.
Okay. All right. What do you think about it? And again, no spoilers.
Well, my kids, so I have 3 girls, and of course they love it. And so I've had to watch many of them multiple times.
Okay.
But it's actually very good. It's a very good story.
Great.
And I generally
Yeah.
don't
No.
get into things like that, but anything you can do with your kids is good. And if they enjoy it, I enjoy it.
It was a good. It was a good opportunity during the pandemic, to think about other things besides the pandemic, right?
Sure.
So that was one of my favorite things about it. Great. Okay, last of the softballs here, and then we can get to the meat of the interview. And this is talking about the pandemic here. So what is the one random thing, outside of course, our friends and family and everything else, but what's the one random thing that you've missed most during the pandemic and all the lockdowns?
Probably just the freedom to be able to go and do what we've always done every day, and actually a lot of which we've taken for granted because we don't realize just how free we are to go and do whatever we want to do pretty much anytime we want to do it. And then with all the new restrictions, and even being able to go to hospitals and visit family members in the hospital, or funerals and weddings and all those things,
Right.
it's greatly affected where, it kind of limits you to what you can see and do with, even your closest, which is your family and friends. And so that's been definitely had the biggest impact in my life for sure.
Yeah, well, I think freedom has been impacted by everybody, and that's that is something that you took for granted. I think once things open back up, everybody's going to be like, get me to a ball game. I want to go to the museum. I want to go out to eat. I want to see my friends and family, not through a glass. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Okay, as we get going here, you got a couple shout outs from Louisiana, Team Joe here, Olivia, giving a little shout out down there, Olivia Malone. So I know we got some other folks tuning in from Minneapolis. We got Virginia here, Queen Bianca, love that. And then we got a shout out from Scotland as well. Pavel's out in Scotland, one of the co-sponsors of the Decon Innovation Awards, and which, by the way, I didn't mention that at the kickoff, and I should have. The story behind the Decon Innovation Awards really starts with Pavel and myself, the two teams, Beyond Clean and Acceptium, coming together and say, hey, we want to talk about ideas and innovation that could change our industry. And sharing that vision with Brian Reed at Asenco, the three of us came together and said, we're going to put on this award series and leverage the internet to have a conversation about these kinds of ideas. And so without those guys, without those other two teams, this award series would not have happened. So we owe a lot to both Pavel and Brian for their support. So I apologize for not mentioning. We got another shout out for you from Pineville, Louisiana, Gage, on Team Joe here. I like those hashtags. That's right. Hold on, Gage. We haven't even talked about the innovation here, and you're already on the team. Okay.
We already know.
Okay. Okay. Great. Love that. All right. So without further ado, I want folks to know a little bit about yourself. They know that you like Mandalorian now, that you're a fan of tacos, and that you miss your freedom. But let's talk a little bit more about the innovator side of Joe. Who are you? Where you come from? What got you excited about this industry?
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Louisiana, which I still travel back and forth to. That's where majority of my family is. And I originally got into the medical industry in March of 2004, actually. Wasn't really in my field of what I thought I would do, based on kind of my upbringing. Was kind of, I guess you could say, wanted to be a farm boy, ranch kind of guy. Ended up in the medical field March 2004, working for another company. Done that for almost 10 years. Worked for another company briefly, and then that's when I started ProMedics Hospital Services about 7 years ago, and just wanted to continue in the medical field. It felt like that's what I devoted most of my life to, and or most of my professional career to. And just like with anything, anything that I'm in, I want to see what I can do to make it better, to make our business better, to come up with better solutions for the things that we do and for the customers that we have. Just always looking for a leg up that benefits, mutually both us and our customers, and that's what led to the Decontaminator. Our other services that we provide, just they're all benefits to the facility, but still allow us to be there, be present, and work with the facilities to see what kind of solutions we can come up with as it pertains to some of the struggles that they face on a daily basis.
Now, Joe, when you were a little kid, little Joe,
Mm-hmm.
did you tinker? Did you have this innovative spirit as a child? We were always working on things. Like how it takes a particular kind of person, right? Like not everybody looks at the world and says, "Hey, there's a problem, and I can come up with a solution." So I'm just wondering, in your younger days, is that something that you knew about yourself, or did you start to discover that the older that you got?
I think that started early on. Growing up in high school, I started working on a farm there locally to home, and so that's pretty much where you get to learn how to fix and work on anything.
Yeah.
And it was just always kind of a, if this is broke, there's got to be a way to fix it, and there doesn't have to be any particular, special knowledge that you have to gain to be able to do it. If you can take it apart, you should be able to put it back together, and that's kind of how I've always looked at things. And then in all of that, a lot of times you'll find that, especially with vehicles nowadays and things like that, it's you come across different ways that you think in your mind, well, if I would have done this, I would have done it this way. So and that's kind of what leads to kind of the innovation and creating new things and just trying to make things better. Mainly because when you have to work on them, it's a lot easier to work on if you're the one that creates them. So.
All right, good point. No, that's great. So I think we have stalled long enough. Let's get to the innovation. The Decontaminator has a name in and of itself that kind of sparks curiosity, I think. So like start at the beginning, and I know that we don't have a visual on this show, but describe to folks who've never seen this unit, what it is, and then how you envision it changing the sterile processing universe.
Okay, so it's a self-contained cabinet, and I'll kind of go into details on it. But how it came about is because of the other services that we provide, we're constantly in sterile processing, the decontamination area. We're generally dressed out for that area, but not to the extent that the staff is that's working at the sinks and the things of that sort. So we may just be in there working on various equipment or pulling equipment in and out. And just by watching hospital staff working within the sinks and the the brush out, and then onto the rinse sink and into the washer. Well, in that second phase of that, where, I would always see them trying to hold the instruments down under the water to protect themselves, when they're trying to blow them out, brush them, rinse them off. There's a couple of issues that I saw with that, where they're being very cautious and even standing back at times to try to protect themselves. Plus, the ability to even see what it is that you're doing, because you're, so far back, because you're holding the instruments under the water, plus the water adds the additional challenge of being able to see what you're doing. Contained device, stick your hands in with your sleeves, not gloves, so you're already wearing the protective material or the protective equipment to protect yourself. You don't have to add any additional things. It doesn't add any additional time other than placing the instruments inside, run your hands through. Then you can actually hold the instruments right up to the glass in a lighted cabinet and brush them, spray them, blow them out. You don't have to worry about anything splashing back on you, and you can effectively see what it is that you're doing. So, and all of that came from several particular issues where instruments were coming back and they were finding, different things on instruments that probably should have been caught, but due to, having to hold the instruments under the water, not being able to see them as clear, and just trying to keep the process moving, a lot of those things can sometimes be missed. So by making it a lot safer for the employees, what we found in several facilities is that we've minimized, and several cases eliminated so far, some of those returned instruments due to those cases where they're not able to effectively clean and see what it is that they're doing.
Now, Joe, I think your signal is breaking up a little bit there at the beginning, but for the folks that, again, haven't seen this, just to summarize what Joe was saying, this is a self-contained unit that has a glass window at the front that you could see what you're working with. You insert your hands into gloves or built into the unit itself, and then you're able to do the brushing and flushing that you would be doing at a sink, to Joe's point, and trying to keep yourself safe either by distance or by angle, all the different tricks that technicians know to use. But now finally there's a potential solution where you can do that, but you can actually see what you're doing in an environment that is safe from the splash, from the aerosols, etc. Right? Is that a good restatement, I guess, Joe, of what your overall description is?
Right, absolutely. I guess the best thing to relate it to that most would maybe know would be like a sandblast cabinet, where you put something in there. You have a wand in there where you're blowing high pressured air and sand over whatever it is that you're trying to clean. You're usually doing that in a similar type enclosure. Same concept, just all stainless steel. We use the sleeves instead of the gloves to keep from any additional things showing up on, or having to add gloves, or just to try to keep it as smooth and easy as possible so that it doesn't slow down the process and actually makes the process more efficient, and the ability to see it where you can actually hold it up as close as you want to look at it through the glass as you're brushing or spraying or cleaning. There is a spray wand that we have in there with all the various tips used to blow out instruments that most are familiar with, and most use in their sinks currently. It's just being able to do that in a contained environment protects the employees so much more, and most of them enjoy doing it, because, and it's so funny to see anytime we install one, the first time anybody uses one or we do an in-service, the first time they spray that gun and it splashes water, they always jump back. So once they get comfortable with knowing that they don't have to worry about that splashing them in the face, then it's fun to them, So so it's really been good to see how it's kind of changed the workflow within the departments, and allowed the staff to protect themselves and more effectively clean the instruments.
I mean, honestly, I've always been kind of a germaphobe, even before I got in sterile processing. And I don't like the sight of blood. I still don't like the sight of blood over a decade in the industry now. And I remember my first day back in decontamination, and I asked my supervisor, like, how much blood is going to come back here? You know, like, am I actually going to have to see a lot of stuff? And they're like, oh, no, you know, for the most part, they take care of everything in the room. And, you know, that's true. But the longer I worked, the more just random things I would see that would come back. And so decontamination, even to this day, that area has always kind of skeeved me out. You know, like I'm a good trooper. I'll do my time in decontam just like anybody else. I'll get in there, you know, suit up. I'm not afraid of the work, you know, the sweat under the PPE and everything else. It was always, though, that thought in the back of my mind, is this place really as safe as it could be? It may be safe enough, you know, to get through regulatory and everything else, you know, or maybe it was safe the first time the surveyors came through it and the architects cleared it and everything else, you know, but it's been 5 years since anybody besides technicians have been in this room. How do we know it's still safe? But that question about the splashing in aerosols has always been there for me. And even, you know, my 10-year career in the field, the only injury or only event that I ever had was a splash to the face in decontam. And I had on all the PPE and everything that I needed. But if you talk to technicians, just like you described, and you watch them work, every single one of them will tell you that there's still a technique aspect to keeping yourself safe in decontam around the water and around the guns and everything else. And that means that it's not as safe process-wise as it could be if you have to be good enough not to injure yourself or not to create aerosols. And so really this innovation, this idea, you know, that's one of the first things when I saw it and heard about it, I was like, that's heading in the right direction for the kinds of solutions and ideas that we need, because it's hardwiring safety in a way that you can't get water out of the decontaminator into your eyes because it's covered with glass and stainless steel.
Right, absolutely. And it's always been, you know, what can we do to more effectively protect the patients that these instruments will one day or that day end up being used on? So if you can figure out a way to not only protect the employees or the people doing the, you know, working through the process, but still have that end result to where you do have a more effective result, and add an additional layer of safety, it makes the whole process more efficient, safer, and of course safer for the patient as well.
Now, Joe, let's talk timelines, because you mentioned you saw the problems in these departments as you were working, as you were there for other reasons. Like you realized, hey, you know, there's an issue here. How long did it take you from seeing the problem to coming up with a prototype of this solution in the decontaminator?
Yeah, it was roughly about, I guess I'd say about 4 years ago now, when the idea came about, just through some of our discussions and seeing some of the challenges. We work with a lot of the facilities with just pre-inspection type stuff, and just trying to find different ways to solve some problems that they're being faced with, because as we all know, what you have to do in one facility to accomplish the same thing you want to accomplish in another, you have to, you know, change up the way you do things a little bit, and it's not always going to be the same. So there's always this very fluid method of what it is that we do and how we do it. So it's kind of a per facility, but this just seemed to be something that could be standardized throughout all facilities that would serve the same purpose no matter where it was. So about 4 years ago, we kind of started looking at you know, this device and had this idea. So we originally came up with a prototype. It was a much smaller version of what it is now, but we just wanted something that we could put into play to see if it's really going to work the way that we think it is going to slow the process down. Does it really help? Is it going to be effective? So we were able to do that, come up with a prototype, much smaller version, but we were able to trial it in 3 of the major facilities here in the Houston area within one of the larger hospital systems. And they all loved it. It all worked very well. And it allowed us to come up with a few changes we wanted to do to it just to make it a little more user-friendly for them. But the thing we wanted to accomplish is, do we have something here that's really going to be beneficial for the process? And we definitely confirmed that. And that's when we started design of the new unit, and then started production on that about 2 years ago now, and then have been actively installing it in hospitals since then. It was a little process to get it to where we wanted it, and we still have some additional things that we're going to add to it just to make it a little bit better. Some add-ons. We've got the base cabinet and everything and all the functions the way that it works best. But good thing about it now is we have some different ideas and new innovations that we can even add to it to even cut down more time and be a little bit more effective. So those things will be coming as well. And we did file for patent. And actually, just coincidentally enough, we just received our actual patent number on actually January 5th of last month.
Wow.
So
congratulations.
So we were able to work through that process, which is, that's a challenge too, but definitely a learning process and certainly rewarding. So timing couldn't be
better. That's awesome. So is there a story behind the name? Obviously, it was the name that pulled me in when I first heard that there's something out there called the Decontaminator, and I wanted to know what it was. So how did you come up with that?
It was a bunch of us just sitting around the table, just brainstorming and coming up with different ideas. I think I still have a note sheet somewhere of some of the others that we came up with that were quite interesting, but I don't think you can find anything more appropriate than Decontaminator, so and we had to find something that was kind of out of the industry that wasn't directly, associated with anything within it. So it was, it was some research that went behind that to finally establish a solid name that couldn't fit it better.
So this is kind of a standard question that we're going to be asking all the finalists, but how is this solution different or better than what's currently on the market today? Where would you put yourself in kind of the competitive market of decontamination, safety, and workflow?
Mm-hmm. Well, and still to date, there's nothing that we could even really compare it to. And most of that you learn through the patent process because you have to rule all of that kind of stuff out. So that was a big benefit and learning process of us, working through that. But the only thing that comes anywhere close to that is that hospital employee that's standing there at the sink doing that manually under the current process that they're using. And that's the only thing we could really compare it to. It's all the solutions that we came up with solved some of the challenges that they were facing. So the only alternative at this point that we know of is to do it the same way and process that a lot of facilities, even still to date, are still doing that manual process.
So I'll have this as my last question, I guess, for you, Joe. There's going to be folks watching these videos, and obviously, even through the Decontamination Award process, one of the reasons that we wanted to have these conversations is to get people thinking. And I love your story about you were in the department, you saw the problem, you thought up a solution, and then you went from there. And inside the sterile processing industry, there's technicians every single day that are all over those departments that see all the problems. And if they're wired a certain way, or maybe if they have encouragement, from guys like you to think, hey, I could fix this, and I could not only fix this for my department, I could fix it for the whole globe. Like my solution could be the solution of the innovation, that changes how we decontaminate or how we load sterilization carts, whatever the the process is. So how would you encourage, or what would you tell folks out there who are either not thinking that way, or maybe they are thinking that way and they have an idea, but they don't really know what to do next? You know, what kind of words of wisdom would you give folks like that?
And I've had quite a few, believe it or not, that have come to me with various ideas because they the process and different things that they do. But I would say that, you know, any idea that you have, anything that you come up with, find the right people that can, you know, direct you in developing that. Anybody can do it. It doesn't have to be, you know, somebody that's even in the medical industry. If it's something that's going to, you know, create another layer of safety, plus, you know, as we all know in the medical world, it's if there's, you know, patients that we're taking care of, it's there's so many variables that we have to work toward to make sure that we're doing the safest thing possible for both employees and patients. And I would just say, go for it. Find the right people necessary to kind of guide you and direct you in that. You know, I'm happy to do that as well, but we work within a lot of the hospitals, so I wouldn't want to, you know, entertain any of that, but I'd be glad to direct people into the process of how they, you know, kind of start that just the way we did. You know, it's definitely not something to leave in the back of your mind and then years down the road realize that somebody else had the same idea. And, you know, so take advantage of it how you can.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's great insight, Joe. And I want to throw out, again, one of the upsides to this whole process. Like, not only do we get to meet innovators like yourself and hear about your solutions, but these other innovators get to meet each other. And, you know, through that, like you mentioned, and how you even came up with the product and the name, that everybody was sitting around the table and talking. And in the virtual world that we live in now, you may not all be able to gather around one conference table, but you can get a lot of folks on a conference call, and you can talk through ideas with people that you know and that you trust and that want to help you succeed and help get your idea to next steps. So that's great feedback. I want to congratulate you again for making it to the top 3, and thank you for coming on for this interview today.
Absolutely. Very happy to be here. We appreciate it.
So for everybody watching, the next step again is the fun step. We got 2 more interviews left in this finalist interview series. The poll is open now to vote for your DIA finalist. The poll link is going to be included in the comment section below on all these videos, on all the social media channels. If you want to read more about the finalists ahead of time, you can go to decontamination.com/finalist. You can read their stories and read about their innovative solution. And again, we're going to, through the votes, we're going to figure out who is the winner of the Decon Innovation Awards, but we're also going to pick a winner from the voters. So we're going to do a special drawing that's going to be worth $200 US for a particular voter. Just randomly draw one. So if you want a chance to win that $200, go ahead and put your vote in for the poll as well for your favorite decontamination innovation of 2021. I want to thank you all for tuning in for the show. Thanks again, Joe, for joining us. And until next time, keep fighting dirty.